Welcome back to the Proximity is Power podcast. I am freaking pumped for today. We have Allan Draper in the house. Allan, thanks for coming on, man.
Hey, no, happy to be here. Really excited.
Dude, I've been looking forward to this for a while, so I'm stoked. Here's a little bio on Allan. If you don't know who he is, he's a freaking beast. I'll just start with that. But he is a serial entrepreneur, attorney, and co-founder of Proof Pest Control, which him and his brother Brent Draper started back in 2015. And right now they have expanded to 10 branches across 7 different states in America, which is super sick. He's from Oregon, currently lives in Phoenix, Arizona. He's the partner in a law firm called Ernst Brown in Draper, Utah. He's also the founder of Lizard Marketing. He's the owner of the podcast called Bug Bucks as well. And he's married right now with 3 kids. So super sick bio. That's awesome.
Thanks, man. Thank you.
Well, just diving right in, Allan. I don't know your story super well, so let's start with that. So grew up in Oregon.
Yep.
How was childhood like? What was childhood like?
So grew up in a small farming community. You know, I was talking to my 12-year-old son last night, and he asked me how many people are in the town I grew up in. And I said, about 3,000. And he said, well, how many people were there when you were growing up? And I said, about 3,000. So It's kind of one of those towns, heavily focused on farming. And for people that didn't grow up in a small town, it's like the world's really small when you do. And there's, not a lot of people leave. And for me, man, I wanted to go see what was out there. And it's kind of been one of my life's missions to be a small fish in a big pond, because I grew up the opposite of that. Like the star on the football team, basketball team, baseball team. And I was pretty good, but would have had a tough time just making the team at all at a big high school.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was kind of my upbringing. Left for college, served a church mission in South America for a couple of years. And I just started reading, and that changed everything for me. Just my perspective and, like what I thought I could accomplish and the things that I thought were possible completely changed, just realizing what other people were doing. So,
wow. So growing up, did you play sports? What was like your main focus growing up?
Yeah. So I was really into sports. I did the regular high school sports. Baseball was I was an all-state baseball player, won the state championship my senior year. We had an incredible team. So
that's awesome.
That was a highlight of like my childhood or youth, I should say, for sure.
Yeah.
But I also loved like snow skiing. I grew up hunting and fishing and doing those types of things also.
Heck yeah. And then growing up, did you know what you wanted to do?
You know, what's funny is like, I always told people I wanted to be a lawyer, and then I kind of went away from that and then kind of came back to it. But when you're a kid, it's like for different reasons.
Yeah.
But so when I was a kid, I wanted to be a lawyer, and I'm technically a lawyer, but I'm really like, if you ask me who I am, like in my personality, my core, I'm an entrepreneur. Like I like building businesses and taking risks. So, like you mentioned, I do own a law firm. I do have a law degree, but I don't practice law.
Awesome. So serve a mission, and then you come back, and then do you get to school, or what are you doing after?
Yeah.
The mission?
So I went to BYU.
Cool.
So came back, graduated from BYU. And it was around that time that my brother was selling pest control for a company called Safeguard. Some of those partners went on to be involved with Insight and Vantage Marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Really good dudes. And so, Brent was really good. My brother really good at door-to-door. And so I went out for one summer and I did like the technical side. I was like the technician and trying to learn all that stuff with the idea that he and I were going to start our own pest control company. This is like 2006, 2007.
Wow.
And it didn't work, man. It was my first failure. I have a weird relationship with that word, but we never got the business off the ground, couldn't get along, undercapitalized, immature, right? To overcome a lot of those early struggles. So he stuck with it. He stuck with door-to-door, had a great career in it. I went to law school, ended up practicing law for a few years afterward. And it was right around that time that he was exiting a pest control company. And so I said, hey, man, maybe it's time we give it another shot. And we did.
Wow. It's really cool. And then you mentioned too, like while you're in college, you started this habit of reading.
Yeah.
So what got you into that?
You know, I think it was a part, from my mission president.
Mm-hmm.
He recommended like that we read about entrepreneurship and money and building wealth and all these things, self-improvement. And so I think it was kind of that, but I think more than that, it was, I got a psychology degree from BYU. And so I've always been interested in why we think the way we think and what motivates us. And there's this innate thing that I have where I'm always trying to get better. And I found that through books, there were thousands of mentors that don't even know who I am, and I could take from them and add it to my life. And I read, in terms of like business or self-help or those types of books, motivational books, I'll read 15 a year or something. I've read, north of 500 of them.
That's so cool. No, that's a huge thing for me too, is like I got that habit at a really early stage, and I feel like it's changed my life more than almost any other habit by far.
Yeah. And
it's like so many people can read in the world, but most people don't. Like most people don't even read a book a year after high school is the stat. So
that is so bad.
Isn't that psycho?
That's so bad.
And I tell people too, like any problem you're going through in life, someone's done it and gone through that same problem in history and written a book on how to get over that problem. So no, super cool. And then, okay, so you go to school, start like this personal development track, you graduate, you start practicing law, and then your brother exits a company and he pulls you back into the pest control game.
Other way around.
Oh, really?
So he exits, and then I think he's kind of doing his own thing on a really small scale, right? And the company that he exited, GreenX.
Yeah.
Large company. And it's larger now than it was back then, but it was still good size.
Mm-hmm.
But he was kind of jaded with it. I guess maybe that's too much of a word, but cause he had been around the block. And so I had to convince him to do it. And it took me, 5-6 months of like trying to sell him on this idea of giving another shot. So
what made you want to leave law and then go do that? Like, what was that?
With law school, I always wanted to like have my own firm or something. So, but right out of law school, I was working for one of the largest firms in the world doing the, large firm thing. And that definitely wasn't for me, but I think it was just going back to my roots. And I think I was like discovering myself and realizing like, I need to build something. I was put on this planet to build something. And that was kind of how I was going to get started with that process.
So just kind of had this itch and kind of unhappy as a lawyer, basically. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So tell us how did that first year in business go? You and your brother starting a pest control company.
Yeah. So, it's an interesting dynamic there because I, come home from work one day, I'm practicing law in Phoenix, and I tell my wife, hey, I'm thinking about quitting my job. And she's like, okay. At the time I have a 2-year-old and a 4-month-old. And I said, I think I'm going to start a pest control company with Brent. And she's like, okay, like, where's this headed? Like, and then I'm like, and we're going to move from Phoenix to Detroit to do it. And I just stopped, right?
Wow.
And she's like, let's freaking go. Let's do it.
Wow.
So, it was like this pivotal moment where like, honestly, like it was me saying what I was wanting to do, but there was a lot of like lack of confidence and me being unsure if, and so I was really wanting to know what her feedback was and her response. And I guess the rest is history, man.
Wow. So you leave like a cush salary position, I'm sure, and you're sending it and you're even moving out to market in Detroit.
Yeah.
Wow. So how did that first year go?
So, oh, sorry. That was the original question. Yeah. The first year, like, actually went pretty well for a first year. You know, I see so many young entrepreneurs that they think year one is make or break, and year one doesn't mean anything. It does, you know, it's survival. That's what year one is. It's survival. But if you look on Instagram and you scroll long enough, you think it's private jets and like caviar in Vegas. And I hate that. I hate that because that's not what it's really about. But anyway, like that first year, you know, we did under $1 million in revenue. We were cash flow positive. And so, it really, you know, it springboarded us into the next stage, but it went, looking back on it, there were struggles. There were moments when I thought we'd have to pack up and, you know, it was all over. But looking back on it, now that I've started several other companies since, man, we were really blessed. We had a really good first year.
Wow. So what were some of those early struggles?
You know, to be honest with you, I struggled still getting along with Brent. Partnerships, it's something I'm really passionate about. I have 28 different business partners in different ventures, and there's different levels. There's business partners that I talk to twice a year. Mm-hmm. There's business partners I talk to every day. But just, I think it was mostly on me figuring out like, how do I change? How do I become a better partner? Because it's a lot like a marriage where you're most successful when you approach each new day like it's the first day. And no matter what happens the day before, you kind of set it behind you and you work on it. I'm really convinced that I wouldn't be where I am professionally without my partners. So that was a struggle, figuring out the partnership. We had a lot of issues with personnel. Pest control is really hard in a lot of different ways. In some ways, it's easier than like a tech company or maybe a retail storefront. But one of the tough things about pest control is the blue collar nature of the technicians. Mm-hmm. If you're not doing a good job with your programs, hiring, training, reviewing, they'll flip you off and never come back. Seriously, they'll take the truck, they'll steal equipment, they'll moonlight, they'll do all sorts of crazy stuff. And so we had some struggles with personnel. You know, we had some struggles figuring out the non-door-to-door marketing. Some typical stuff year one. Wow.
So what was the goal when you guys first started the company? Like scale it as fast as possible? Like what was the plan?
Yeah, like I think, dude, I've got all this stuff in my pocket. I'm just gonna kind of like,
yeah, drop it on the table or something.
Drop it right here.
Yeah, you're good.
But you know, I think our vision for the company is like evolved, but back then it was like, hey, this is my job now. Like I'm going to run a pest control company the rest of my life. So, but yeah, there was definitely just with the door-to-door nature, like we wanted to grow it, right? We wanted to scale it, and we were definitely able to do that.
How did you, like a year or two in, were you like, why the heck did I leave my job as a lawyer? Or did that never cross your mind?
There were definitely moments, but they were like really painful, like moments of struggle those thoughts didn't last very long. Like once I like took a couple of deep breaths, well, to be honest, there were a couple of moments early on, first 6 months, where I thought I was going to have to move back from Detroit to Phoenix to ask for my job back.
Wow.
But not because I wanted to. I thought that's what was going to happen just because I thought Proof was going to fail. But no, like, dude, a lot of people think I do it for money. That's the thing about business is it's a fine motivation early, but it's just, that will not sustain you. In most businesses, without a great mentor, or I don't know, when you're going through a lot of those struggles, it's not enough. So for me, like I was never really tempted to quit my job. And that's really saying something, because, and a lot of times people would ask me like, oh, did you hate practicing law? It's like, no, I actually didn't. I just really love building companies.
That makes sense. I guess what were the biggest challenges you faced, like when you were trying to scale Proof? So you started in Detroit, and then when did you guys decide that you wanted to open up another branch?
So we actually recruited a door-to-door rep with the anticipation of opening a branch year or two. So even before we opened our doors in Detroit, we had this plan for opening a second branch. We didn't know exactly where, but that ended up being Boston. So 2016, we opened up the Boston office.
Wow. So you're building this business, and how I feel like something that I've been thinking about a lot, like what did you guys pay yourselves at first? How much money were you taking out of the business? How much were you putting back in? Because I feel like that's like a mystery question with entrepreneurship, is like, that.
Yeah. Dude, this is such a good question for early entrepreneurs. And the reason why is because most businesses fail. The early businesses fail because of a lack of cash flow. And people think, oh, as soon as I open my doors, I remember like when I was practicing law, I had a really tough day. I was like upset at one of my bosses or something. And I go back to my office. I kind of slam the door and I, sink down into my seat. This was after Brent and I already decided to pull the trigger, but before we had actually done so, right? I'm still working. And I remember thinking, man, I can't wait till I start my first company, because I'm going to have so much more money and I want to have so much more control over my time. And I immediately had less of both of those. So, when you're at that stage, those companies that struggle the most, and just for the record, like we went through kind of my bio, we didn't talk about my failures. Like I have many failed companies. And so I've noticed patterns. I've noticed patterns of successful companies, and I've learned about patterns of unsuccessful companies. And I think outside of like personal issues, fighting, stuff like that with a partner, I think the number one reason why early businesses fail is because the owner depends too much on the cash flow from the business to survive. Brent and I had saved a few bucks. It wasn't a lot, right? Maybe $100,000 between us. Now this is a decade ago, and inflation destroyed what the dollar's worth.
Right.
But so it's maybe 125, 150 in today's dollar, something like that. So we didn't start with much, but we also didn't require much from the company. So year one, you asked what we were paying ourselves. I think it was right around $20,000 a year one.
Wow.
Like no commissions, no nothing.
It's bootstrapping it.
Dude, so the interesting thing is that at the time, I moved my family and Brent, he slept in the living room, into this 2-bedroom apartment in Detroit suburbs. And at that time, I already had 3 single family homes that I owned.
Wow.
And they weren't like anything spectacular, but they were 4-bedroom homes. I owned them, but I wanted to lease those out so I could have revenue to live off of. And I moved into a 2-bedroom apartment. So, but yeah, those early days, it was all about every dollar that we made, we pumped back into the company, and we tried to just run it as lean as possible and use every extra dollar for marketing.
I hope you guys are hearing this, because like Brent could have sold all of his properties, bought a nice house in Detroit, and lived large that first year in business. Like, so much of success in life and investing in entrepreneurship is just financial literacy. And like, especially at the beginning of a business, like the business requires a lot of attention, a lot of time, a lot of money. And like you sacrificing your own wants and needs early on just probably gave you such a huge advantage in the beginning.
It's huge. The other day I was talking to this young entrepreneur, and he told me that, so he hasn't opened his doors yet. And he told me that he hired this branding firm and he paid them 30 G's
to make a logo. To brand his company. Oh
dude, I and I kind of let him have it a little bit, because that's exactly why he was wanting to talk to me. And I didn't know who this guy was, right? I was just helping him out. And I explained to him this concept, which is very, very valuable. And that is $1 to company year one means probably 10x what $1 to a company year 5 means. Even though it's the same amount of money, right? But it's completely different. And that dollar goes so much further year one. And, you know, in my book that's coming out in a few months, I talk about the sacrifices that are required to start it and grow a successful company. And this is one of them. It's this idea that we are going to create this engine, but in the beginning it requires fuel. And whatever fuel we take out of it in the beginning is going to cost us 10x down the road. And so you have to have this perspective of, hey, I'm just going to put my head down and I'm going to run it really lean and I'm not going to take a lot out in the short term, so that in the long term, I have the freedom to do that.
Wow. So cool. I was just listening to a podcast with Todd Peterson, who started Vivint. And I didn't really know this, but the guy was lived so broke for so long. And like his second year owning his marketing company, he made $800,000 and he was in his young 20s. But he literally invested everything either back into the business or in real estate. And he still rented a crappy apartment, drove like a crappy truck until late 30s when his net worth was over like 60 million.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Like so extreme, right?
Yeah.
But like to get extreme results in life, like you kind of have to be extreme, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, that's a really cool story and something I totally believe and resonate with.
Yeah.
And the longer that you can put it off, the larger that result is going to be at the end. And what it comes down to really is there's no right or wrong. There's right in terms of like, hey, I'm not going to strangle my company. I have this, I had this startup contact marketing company and I funded it and my partner was in charge of running the day-to-day operations. His salary was like 150 grand, like no contingencies. Fast forward a year or two, company failed. So we strangled the company because of the financial stress that we put on it for, you know, what my partner needed, you know. So kind of going back to, besides like just strangling your company because it doesn't have the cash that it needs to survive, there's no real right or wrong. But you look at a guy like Todd Peterson and it's like, dude, that guy, he sacrificed for so long, but then, you know, you look now and it's like hindsight's 2020, like genius, right?
Yeah, he's a billionaire.
Yeah, like, and that's a big number. Right. So it's like, but there's a really good principle here, and that is the longer that you can put off the short-term gratification, yes, the more. It's just like investing. There's a time value of money, and that is like compounded when it's in a business. So the longer that you can push that off, and we pushed it off for a few years, not as long as it sounds like Todd did. And we still reinvest probably 50% of what we make back into companies of some sort. But, you know, that's, I just really want to help people understand this concept of plan on not making anything for a couple of years and you'll be really happy that you did.
Amen. No, I think about the study they did with the kids with the marshmallows.
Exactly.
You know, and like,
exactly.
They're like, hey, we'll give you one marshmallow now. Or if you can wait 10 minutes, we'll give you another marshmallow and you get 2. And the kids that immediately ate the marshmallow ended up, and they followed these kids for years, ended up being way less successful than the kids that could delay that short-term gratification for a better reward in the future.
Exactly.
And it's such like, it's crazy because like, I feel like at an early age in my life, I got taught that principle by my parents. Like my dad gave me $1,000 to go without eating sugar for a year when I was in 5th grade. Oh, like what a blessing, you know? Like,
did you do it?
I did it. Like, I completed it.
No Christmas, no nothing, no Christmas.
Like, yeah, kids' birthdays in class, they're bringing donuts and cupcakes, and I'm in 5th grade. Like, mouth watering, but I'm
That's
like,
next
no,
level.
no, no. And so like that, like, I hope you guys are getting that, because like that principle in entrepreneurship, that principle in investing, that principle, you know, even with your spouse, like short-term hard, like make deposits into that relationship for greater reward in the future. And I agree with you 100%. And it's so key, and it's so not the norm today.
Yeah.
Like I feel like in 2025, people want now.
We want next day delivery, bro.
Yeah.
We can thank Amazon for that. We can thank Netflix for, bro. And I'm quite a bit older than you.
Yeah.
And I remember we had to go to the freaking Blockbuster, look around for a movie, then bring it home. And sometimes it's like, I don't know if it's worth it, when right now it's at our fingertips. And Prime, dude, I live kind of by, you know, there's a distribution facility probably within 10 miles of my house. 50% of what I order, I get the same day. I'm at my office, my doorbell rings, and like my home office, and there's like a package there that I just like ink cartridges for my printer. And so, which is great. Like, hey, I'm not hating on those services. They're great businesses, but I don't want it to affect our mentality. And my book is about this, dude.
Wow.
It's about like, what are the sacrifices that are required in order, what's actually required? Do I have to sacrifice time with my young kids? A lot of people ask me that question. In order to be successful in business, I have a 6-month-old. Do I need to sacrifice that time? And the idea of my book is, hey, here's the blueprint for how to be successful in business without, and here's the key, without sacrificing what matters most. So sometimes, and I get the temptation, man, trust me, I get it. So we're in Utah recording right now. I had planned this weekend here, and then my wife forgot that she didn't put our kids' soccer games on the calendar. And so I had to move some stuff around. So I'm flying out in a couple of hours now versus 2 days from now. And I'm going to try not to get choked up here, but I had to like schedule another flight. And I went and told my 6-year-old, like, cause she thought I was going to miss her game. I go and I tell her like, hey, you know, I just got another flight. It was $185. I'm flying Frontier. I'm not proud of it. Like I never, you know what I mean? I'm really doing what I've got to do to get back. And anyway, she was just really happy. And I'm like, hey, the flight's $185. And I'm like, hey, are you worth $185? And anyway, it was a really cool moment. So, but that's the essence of the book, because, dude, I have a really high motor. There's so much that I want to accomplish while I'm on this planet. And there's been a lot during this process where I've made the wrong choice. You know, there were days upon days strung together when I didn't see my kids at all, because by the time they woke up, I was gone. By the time I got back, they were in bed. And I don't want others, if you know, within the sound of my voice, I want them to be able to avoid that. And there's a way to do it. And there's still a way to be successful. And there's other ways to sacrifice. But that's my big thing is don't sacrifice what matters most, because then you end up regretting it. Wow. And one of my philosophies in life is that risk is a lot less scary than regret. So find where you can take risks and exchange that for future regret.
Wow. I love you sharing that. Like, no, that's huge. And I think about my dad, because my dad owned a financial services company, freaking busy, had all the drive and motivation in the world, but I don't remember one game or event that he didn't come to. Like, he made that a priority. And I feel like a lot of people that aren't entrepreneurs, like, are a slave to the job, and they can't control if they can be somewhere or not. And I think that's one of the cool parts about business is like, you can create something where you can pick and choose, and you have more autonomy with your time and how you prioritize things, for sure.
Yeah. So ultimately, like when I started getting into entrepreneurship, my goal was freedom. I wanted to control my time and my money, and those two things are closely related. And I'm now at a point where I'm starting to think about my legacy. You know, I love the saying, like, the goal shouldn't be to live forever. The goal should create something that does. And for me, that's like next, like what happens? What do I leave behind? But in order to get there, you have, and it's a natural progression, right? We see the Bill Gates of the world, they create foundations, Warren Buffett, right? They do all these things. And that's, you know, that's kind of the phase of life that I'm in. But in order to get there, you have to have freedom to control your time and have financial resources to do that. And man, that's a really high level of motivation, right? It's not like, hey, I want a nice car. It's like, hey, I want to be able to like go to my 6-year-old soccer game, right? Because as it was with you and your dad, like, dude, we're still here talking about that. And this is years later, right?
Right.
That's legacy. That is freedom in exchange for legacy. Because after your dad moves on to the next life, dude, you're still here preaching that.
Right. No, it's huge. And yeah, like I feel like there's so many people that have like bad ideas about money or business, that people are greedy and this and that and the other. But like my definition of money is freedom, like freedom to do what you want, when you want, with whoever you want. Because if you don't have money, like you don't get to make those trade-offs. Like you don't have a choice, like, you know? And so I think, like I was just at a Tony Robbins event in New York, and I talked about this on another podcast, but he kind of sold us that, like, if you think about the different areas of life, like, you know, physical body, emotion and meaning, time, intimate relationship, career, finance, you know, and contribution, you really can't master any of those areas of life if you don't master your finances. And I'm like, wow, like that's why. And I feel like at first, like in life, you know, you're 18, 19, all the way to like 25, 30, your first job, if you're a guy, is go learn to master that area of life.
Yeah.
And there's going to be sacrifices, especially like for you, like you went and started a business, like there were sacrifices that you had to make, you know, with your family and probably your spouse too, but like for a greater reward in the future, like short term, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Does that make sense?
No, 100%. So that's what it's about, right? We're wanting to trade something of lesser value for something of greater value.
Right.
And it's something that I really struggled with as a young entrepreneur, and I still do to some extent. It's like, hey, what's the trade-off? Like, it's like, what company should I invest in so that I, you know, give $10, I invest $10 in this company and it turns into 100 versus investing $10 into this company and it turning into 0. Mm-hmm. And so that's what that's what we're charged with. And the most important thing that we have is our time. It's super cliche. And I remember when I was broke and wealthy people would say that, and I would think it was, you know, dumb, like, of course, because you have money. But it's like, it's true. Making a lot of money is like, it's difficult. It's not that difficult. You don't get any more time. Now there's ways to create time with money, right? Like and by create, I mean like, hey, I'm going to have somebody do my grocery shopping and they're going to deliver them into my refrigerator. It's actually a really nice service. And then I don't have to do that. Right. But anyway, the correlation between time, freedom, and money is like one and the same.
No, I love that. There's a great book called Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell.
Read it. Yep.
It's so good.
Yep.
Like he talks about how like calculate your dollars per hour and then hire anyone to do all the tasks that are lower than that dollar amount.
Dude, so there's a, and I quote that book in my book. Mm-hmm. I cite something, and I kind of rephrased something that he said in there. But my favorite part of that book was this idea that 80% done by somebody else is better than 100% done by you. And when you're talking about scaling a company, and that's one of the sacrifices in my book, you have to be okay with not controlling everything, mm-hmm. which a lot of young entrepreneurs struggle with. They're like, this is my business. No one cares as much as I do. But 80% done by somebody else is better than 100% done by you because you can be doing other things with that. But that's a great book.
Yeah.
Great recommendation.
For sure. No, and I'm thinking about this too. Like, yeah, there's different seasons in your life where maybe right now you are sacrificing your time with your family to build your business and you're in the thick of it. Like, I think there's seasons, but the important thing is that you are intentional and you're aware with how you're spending your time and you know where you're sacrificing things, for sure. So shifting gears a little bit, like one cool thing that I look up to you guys about is you guys have always, when you do take money out of the business, like you're investing. So let's talk about investing. First question is like, when should someone start investing and what should they invest in?
You know, this is a really good question and it's a difficult one to answer because up until your business gets to a certain point, you should be investing everything that you've got back into your business. It's really risky, but the risk is mitigated because you're the one in control, presumably. So I want that caveat out there that like early on, don't be pulling a bunch of money out of your company to send it elsewhere. And your highest ROI is probably going to be within your own business.
So what should people be investing in within their business? Just hiring people to buy back their time mostly? Or what would you say?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's got to be in the form of what's going to scale the company.
Yeah.
So what's the bottleneck? What do I need to do in order to scale? A lot of times that's marketing, sales, and then it ends up being something in operations and it comes to something in efficiency or whatever. But yeah, it's when you're investing in your business, the idea is I need to make my business larger so that I make more money off of the money that I invested in it.
Right. No, it's huge. Alex Hermosi talks about this. He's like, when you're starting a business and when you've scaled a business, he's like, what you do with the profits, he tells people to split it these three ways. He says, one, you put it back in. So 30%, 33% of the profits you put back into the business, 33% you put in a rainy day fund for the business, and then 33% you pay yourself. And I thought that was kind of a cool way of framing it. But like Todd, for example, all the profits from the business, half he put back in and half he pulled out and invested in real estate and other things to be able to fund the business growth too, which I think is kind of cool.
Yeah. And I definitely think there's a level, and I don't have a formula. Sounds like those guys have.
Well, it's different for every business and every situation, I'm sure too.
Yeah. I probably need to get something more concrete because I've done it a lot over the last, especially 5 years. But when you pull it out of the business, what you're doing is, I think you're decreasing your potential ROI, but you're also decreasing your risk. So when Todd was doing that with real estate, you know, that's you have a, you know, it's tough to lose with real estate, really tough to lose. And I do, trust me, I've done some dumb things in real estate. And so anyway, I think that's it's going to come down to risk tolerance. But I love to see people betting on themselves. And it also has to do with like, dude, I love investing in startups. Like I like to see startups grow. I just actually ran into a couple of guys that started this online platform through like this BYU incubator program, and they're former college athletes. And this platform, it's actually super cool. And I was one of the first investors. I'm stoked for them. But it connects like local businesses with college athletes so that they can sponsor the college athletes. These are the people that you wouldn't see on a Wendy's commercial, or, you know what I mean? These aren't the number one draft picks. These are the people that have like local value, like, a member, second string running back for BYU or whatever. Connecting them with the local businesses and saying, hey, you take a picture with our shirt on, put it on your Instagram story. We'll send you $15 or give you a $15 gift card to our burger joint, whatever. Anyway, so I just ran into them like an hour ago, and dude, it's cool just seeing that. So going back to your question about investing, a lot of it has to do with like, what are the things that I'm passionate about and what do I kind of want to get behind? So really, I think it comes back to like, what are my priorities? Is it just strictly about growing? Man, blue chip stocks might be the best thing that you invest in. Like, pump a bunch of that into NVIDIA or
some index funds. Yeah.
So
So what would you tell someone, like, let's say a door-to-door reps listen to this and
Okay.
their second summer, they just made $100,000.
Yeah.
What would you tell them to do?
Oh my gosh.
This is a tough question. I'm putting you on the
Dude,
spot.
no, I love the question. I see them just squander money. Like, dude, I don't know if there is a subset of people that blow money in worse and faster ways than door-to-door reps.
Amen.
You know the saying, easy come, easy go?
Yes.
Dude, now I've seen some really sharp reps too. Like I have a couple of business partners, multi-millionaires because they made smart decisions.
Yeah.
And how did they do that? They put off short-term, I'm going to buy a new Tesla. I'm going to buy a house. I'm going to, for long-term
Right.
growth. So first off, I got to say something about taxes.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times they run into problems with that where it's like, hey, I don't have enough to pay my taxes. So
Because they spent it all. Yeah.
they spent it all, right? So make sure that you're reserving that, and then do something with your money that makes it grow. Money's a seed, and you can either like choke it or you can help it grow. You can plant it and water it, do all these things, right? So there's so much that you can do, and young people, the number one financial principle is time. It's funny how closely money and time are related. But if you have time on your side, very few investments are bad investments. So,
No, I love that.
I think, I mean, you've got to save some. I have a couple of rules of thumb. So I have 10 laws that govern wealth, and I didn't create them. I distilled them from probably 100 financial books that I've read over the years.
Wow.
They're on my website. I've started making videos, but I kind of lost track of that, introducing and talking about each one. But I have all these different laws. And one of my laws is that you save and never spend 10% of everything you make into perpetuity, and investing is not spending. I talk a lot about like how you have to give some of it away. So anyway, like I have my advice already. It's on my website. Like there's these 10 laws. If you follow them, you're guaranteed to be wealthy. Guaranteed. It would be impossible to not be wealthy if you follow the laws, but very few people want to.
Yeah.
Because man, a new Tesla, that sounds really nice.
No, I see it all the time. And I think it's going back to the point we were talking about earlier. Like when you get money, just delay short-term gratification as much as you can.
Exactly.
Like live broke. I love the quote that says, live like no one else is willing, so tomorrow you can live like no one else can.
Yeah.
And it's not even tomorrow. It's like in a decade, you know? And it's just like, if you can delay that and get educated on investing, like Casey Boss says, if you don't know what to invest in your human life value, invest in yourself to learn the difference between good investments and bad investments.
Yeah.
Because there's no such thing as good investments, just good investors.
Yeah.
So that's like what I'd say, like go get educated, go learn.
I like that.
And delay your short-term gratification as much as possible.
I mean, a great rule of thumb. So one of my laws is that you don't buy any like real toys until you're a net worth millionaire, which it should probably be more than that now. Mm-hmm. And what do I mean by that? Like, don't go buy a brand new motorcycle. Don't go buy a brand new car. Pay $3,000 cash, drive around a freaking clunker until and people are like, what? $1 million? Bro, I drove a freaking 2010 Nissan Altima up until the point that I had a net worth over $10 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
Guys, rewind that. Like he had a net worth of $10 million before he upgraded his car.
Yeah, dude, I got it during law school.
That's
and I drove it
super sick.
until I had a net worth of $10 million.
Talk about delay short-term gratification. No, that's such a huge principle, and I want you guys to get this. And like I used to frame expenses like I'd multiply any expense by 20.
That's smart.
Or 10. You know, like a $5 burrito. Now burritos are $10. It's
Yeah.
$100 burrito. Because if I just invested that $10 in the S&P, waited 30 years, it would be 100 plus. It's actually $1 invested a day is worth 20 to 30 times more if you just 10% return for that time in 30 to 40 years. So that's huge.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about it like that. But and obviously you've got to eat,
extreme.
right?
Yeah.
But that's the thing, is that it really puts into perspective what money actually means. And you want money working for you. So we started this conversation talking about what I'd recommend for door-to-door reps.
Yeah.
And it's all of this, but I think it goes back to that story you're talking about with those kids in the marshmallow.
Yeah, for sure.
They followed those kids, and they had the most professional degrees. They were the wealthiest. They had the most success in life because they could delay that. Amen. And if I could do anything like for those door-to-door reps, it's like, dude, just hold off, right? Invest it, follow these like principles, and
it's huge.
And
I was really lucky because my dad's in finance.
That's awesome.
He made me read Rich Dad Poor Dad. The Richest Man in Babylon, like all the OG
classics,
great books on money. And he always said, Gage, you cannot raise your lifestyle. Like you cannot upgrade your lifestyle until your passive income can pay for it. Like that rule alone was like so good,
That's awesome.
Switching gears a little bit, like I know about you and I really look up to is like you are intentional and you're obsessed with becoming better and like personal development. So I guess why are you so obsessed with that? And how do you do it? How do you prioritize personal development and becoming better?
Yeah, I think for me, it's innate, man. Like it's just, there's something in me that like, I want to be better. I want to be a better father. I want to be a better business partner. Like I want to get in better physical shape. I want to be, wealthier. I don't know where it really came from. I think it's this basic mentality that I have that we have more control over our lives than we sometimes give ourselves credit for. And so for me, it's, and I think that's when I'm the happiest, is when not only I'm achieving better, but I'm working toward it. And there's a big difference there, because sometimes it's, one step forward, 3 steps back. I read this awesome book called The Gap and the Gain. Are you familiar with it?
No, I haven't heard of that.
Gap and the Gain. And the idea is that really high achievers, they are much better at focusing on the gain, which is where they used to be to where they are now, than they are at the gap, where they are now from where they want to be. Wow. And this is something I struggle with. And I have imposter syndrome with this, man. I rarely feel like I belong. And it's something that I'm working on. And that's recognizing like, man, I've come a long way. I've done a lot of great things versus I have so far to go. That's the essence of the book. The most successful people, they recognize how far they've come. And the reason why they're the most successful people is because that motivates them. When we look at how far we have to go, that demotivates us. So it's this, and I kind of live by that principle. But what are some of the things like, I'm big into like a lot of the cliche stuff, dude. I do the cold plunges and I do the steam rooms and the saunas and and I don't give a crap what social media says. I do it because it feels good. Like I feel my body feels like it's in better shape. So I'm constantly worried about my body, working on relationships. That's a big part of, I have goals in 7 different areas of my life. And I make sure that, because I don't think you can, compensate for failure in one by being great in another.
Amen.
Right. So, so I have goals with my kids, right? Read my scriptures every day with my 12-year-old, which, dude, that's been huge for me. So, I want to be really well-rounded, and my 7 areas, and I think people can chop them up different ways. Like sure. This isn't like the Bible on it, but my spiritual life, my family life, my mental, like what's my mental state? How am I feeling about myself? My physical, my professional, my financial, and my social life. What's my social network? Like things like that, right? Like who do I rub shoulders with? And they're in order. And nothing above the other is worth the exchange. I talk about this in my book. I've been talking a lot about things in my book, but yeah. So if I have to decide, so it goes spiritual, family, mental. If I have to decide between spending time with my kids and doing something for myself, for my own mental health, I'm going to default to my kids. Now, hopefully there's not a lot of those situations where you're trading one for the other.
Right.
But it happens. And the further you go down, it happens a lot. Dude, I'm not the most popular guy. Like, I don't have a million friends that ask me to go to the bar with them or ask me to go do stuff. I posted something on my story the other day that, like, people would be surprised with how few friends I have. And that's because that's number 7 in my life.
Yeah.
There's things above that. And you know what's number 6? I don't know if you caught it, but number 6 is money.
Yeah.
Still important to me. But it's not more important than my profession, right? So anyway, I could go on about this stuff.
No, I love that.
But focusing on different areas and making sure that I'm paying attention to different areas. And I do a daily check-in where I go over like my long-term visions. Like, hey, 3-5 years, where do I want to be? And what I do is I visualize. So I'll visualize my 12-year-old who in 3 years is going to be 15. Imagine him coming into my office saying, hey, Dad, let's go hit some golf balls. And making sure that I want that relationship, not the relationship my son's in his room trying to do anything to not be around Dad.
Wow. No, I love that you're so intentional with that and you have a system and you know what you value most and you put first things first. That's like the big thing. Like, I think everyone can have their own like philosophy or order or whatever. But like the important thing is that you figure out yours.
Yeah.
And you stick to it and you're not going to be perfect, but try to be better tomorrow.
That's a really big first step is figuring out like, hey, what's my direction?
Yeah.
And if you don't know what your direction is, just get started. Just pick a direction.
Yeah.
Because as you're on your path, then you'll realize, okay, maybe I need to tweak this a little bit.
Yeah.
Right. And as that changes. And then the other thing I want to mention is, you know, one of our greatest motivations in life, I think Tony Robbins said this, is that we're consistent with who we believe we are. Right.
Yeah. Your own identity.
Exactly. But show yourself some mercy sometimes.
For sure.
Because you're going to need it, because you're going to screw up and that's okay.
Yeah.
So, and it's something that like, I'm trying to preach this to myself, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, it's work in progress for sure. But no, I agree with you. I think, and it's way easier to pivot when you're moving than just being, you know, lost in the sauce and stuck in one spot. Okay, what do I prioritize first? No, just pick something, move, and it's easier to pivot when you have momentum.
Very true.
I want to ask you this. So the podcast is obviously called Proximity is Power.
Yeah.
The reason I started it is because I've always tried to hang around successful people that I look up to in an area of life and learn from them. So do you believe that proximity is power, and how important has it been to you in your life?
Yeah, I don't know if there's like a quantitative way to describe that level. And I like this idea that proximity is power for a couple of different reasons, because like we started early on talking about the books that I read. To me, that was my proximity to these people, right? Because I got to get inside their heads and their hearts about how they were able to do the things that they were able to do. And so I got closer to them, even though they don't even know who I am, right? So, and the older I get, the more I'm careful with who I spend time with. Not that I'm better than them. It's probably the opposite. It's that, like, you know, I need to level up and get better. But one of the sacrifices I talk about in my book is that your relationships will change. And you have to be proactive about that. You have to say, hey, I'm not going to go, you know, watch the game every Friday night with all my buddies, because I'm going to be spending time with my family instead. So you just get to the point where when you get busy and you have all these great things going on in your life, you want to make sure that the people that you do spend time with, that you're learning from, are top-notch people. They're people that lift you up. And, you know, quick story, in church, this is about a year ago, I see this young man, really liked him, family friend, 17-year-old. And I could tell he's having a tough time, head down, didn't really look up at all. And I went up to him afterwards and I'm like, hey man, I'd known him for a couple of years at this point. I'm like, hey, do you know what I do professionally? Like and sometimes I don't even know what I do, but he's like, no, I don't know what you do. And I said, well, I help people make short-term sacrifices to build businesses and wealth. And I don't know you. I'm not your leader. I'm not your parent. This is me as a friend here telling you. I'm quite a bit older than you, but me as a friend. Next time you're out on the weekend, I want you to do me a favor. Whatever room you find yourself in, look around. I want you to identify the types of people in that room that you're in that you want to be like. And if you can't find a person that you want to be like, a person that you feel lifts you up, that makes you better, that makes you like more in tune and all these things, leave the room and don't ever go back. And Gage, I wish I had a uplifting like result into the story. He didn't do it. Really tough life now for this kid.
Wow.
Moved out, didn't graduate high school, severe drug use, all these things. And it's like, it's simple, but it's not easy.
Yeah.
This idea of proximity is power. It's simple, but not easy because it's not, we know what we got to do.
Yeah.
But man, it's fun hanging out with those people. Sometimes those people are our siblings.
Right.
Sometimes they're people like relationships are forced on us. And it's not cut them out of your life and never see them.
Right.
But maybe next time they text you and you're in the middle of something, you don't immediately text them back, right?
Yeah.
Value that time and be really proactive about who you spend your time with and your energy.
Wow. I love you sharing that. And honestly, like, I'm going to talk about my dad again, but literally anytime he was driving me to drop me off at a friend's house, he's like, Gage, who you spend your time with, you will be like when you're with your friends tonight, think about what do they have you watching? What do they have you doing? What do they have you talking about? But ultimately, what do they have you becoming?
Yeah.
And like, he'd say that so many times. I'm like, yeah, dad, whatever. But no, like when I was with my friends, I literally think like, do I like the person I am with these friends? Do I like who they are, who they're having me become? And it was huge. And especially like when you're in that stage of life, from 12 to 18, like kids that age are influenced more by their friends and their parents.
Yep.
Like you kind of have 0 to 12 to kind of like build a solid foundation or not. And then they're kind of, with their friends. And so like, if you, it's scary. And honestly, like Tony said something really cool. He's like, love your family, like your friends, but choose your peer group. And I think that's really cool too. Cause like, yeah, even if you're not physically with them, like you said, like you can listen to their book or read their book or listen to a podcast that they're on or watch YouTube videos and get inside the head of whoever you want in life.
For sure.
So no, I love that. 3, 2, 1 pivot. What are 3 books that have impacted you the most and why?
3 books. That's a really hard one, but I love Robert Kiyosaki's Cash Flow Quadrant. I love the way that it changes how you think about money and time. Business book. Let's do Good to Great, Jim Collins. I love that. And one more. Dude, every year I read this book called Tuesdays with Morrie. Mitch Albom wrote it. And it's like a really quick read. You can read it in like an hour and a half, 2 hours. And it's just about like the meaning of life and kind of figuring out, what the heck we're doing here.
What is it called again?
Tuesdays with Morrie.
Tuesdays with Morrie.
Yeah. Morrie was his professor that was dying. And so he's teaching him, he's sharing all these things.
I love that.
Just a cool book, but that's, the list is long. I have a bunch of recommended books on my website.
Go check it out.
Because I get that question quite a bit, but.
Awesome. 2 people that have impacted you the most and why?
2 people that have impacted me the most. Let's set spiritual to the side. Okay.
Yeah.
But let's mention it. My mission president, for non-spiritual reasons, by the way, he, Canadian immigrant to California, built an absolute dynasty in Northern California with real estate and roofing and just dynasty. And then another, I'd probably say my wife. She's one of those people we were just kind of talking about. I'm just a better person. I like myself when I'm around her. And just makes me want to level up. I
love that. I was talking about this on a video, but like when I was 20, I did not want to get married like at all. Like I wanted to be, I just want to be single forever. And, but then I read Think and Grow Rich and it said, you cannot fulfill your ultimate potential in life without being married. and immediately I just trusted him. Like, I'm going to get married sooner.
Yeah.
It's like, I want to level up. And no, I've been married for almost 3 years now. And that's like,
awesome.
It's such a crazy, intimate relationship that you see things about yourself that you would have never otherwise seen. So it's really cool. What did you learn, I guess, from your mission president? Like, why was he one of the most impactful people in your life?
So I think he set me on this course of a couple of things. One, finding mentors, reading books, but also you can be successful in multiple areas of your life. And actually, not only can you, but that's the only way to truly be successful. What's interesting is when I went on my mission, I always heard like mumblings throughout, like, hey, mission president, your last night, he gives you this famous speech, and nobody really knew what it was about. And so my last night before flying from Chile back home, we all stayed at the mission president's house. And that night he spoke to us for a couple of hours. I'm like, dude, what's he going to talk about? I'm like, oh, maybe he's going to talk about getting married after our missions. Maybe he's going to talk about education or being good fathers or mothers, parents. Maybe he's going to talk about staying active in the church. What he talked about? Money. He spent 2 hours talking to us about building wealth, and recommended a bunch of books. Richest Man in Babylon was one of them. I read it like a week after, I got home, and then 10 others. And so it was that, and it's taken me some time, but I got the message. The message wasn't getting married isn't important. Church is important. Family isn't important. That's not what he was saying. He's like, well, I've been talking to you about those things for the last 2 years. Now you're in this next phase, and you have this permission, and you almost have this duty to go become wealthy. Because like you said before, there's a lot of things that you'll be able to do, and a lot of people you'll be able to serve, and a type of person that you'll be able to become only if you're wealthy. Wow.
That's amazing. That's really cool. No, I agree 100%. And that's cool that he saw like, okay, you busted your butt. You worked hard for God and everything. And he taught you all the principles. And I'm sure you saw his example on your mission. But then it's like, no, now you're in a different season of life. You're, 20 to 30. Like, you need to go make it financially. Like, you need to go learn how to make a lot of money and be a steward so you can master these other areas of life at a higher level. That's really cool. And my dad kind of said the same thing on his mission. His mission president told him, like, my dad was trying to extend his mission, and he's like, no, like, you need to go back home, and the first thing you need to do is become a millionaire. Not for the money, but for the person you'll become.
Exactly.
The person that you're required to be to earn that type of money and have that type of wealth. Cause like, yeah, it's really cool. What's one quote that you live by or you feel like has impacted you the most, and why?
Let's go with, I've already mentioned it, but let's go with, risk is less scary than regret.
I love that.
And for me, it just comes down to like, when we have an idea in our head, we never go back to neutral. And I try to explain this. Like, so if I say, hey, I'm going to start a business, once that thought occurs to us, we will never go back to the position we had before we had that thought. So we either do it or we don't, right? That's the decision that we have. But if we don't do it, there's this potential for regret. And then the other side is risk. So for me, it's just one or the other, and you pick it. Do I want to get down the road 20 years and regret, or do I want to take some risk right now?
Wow. What's your best advice for someone wanting to start a business?
I mean, so my first piece of advice is go for it, which is interesting because I wrote this book about all the sacrifices that are required to succeed.
Yeah.
But the underlying idea is that do it anyway. It's hard, do it anyway. And I think part of it's because of that type of person you were talking about that you have to become in order to be a millionaire. There's a certain type of person you have to become in order to be a successful business owner. Your business will never reach a level that you are not at. It is not possible. So go for it. But beyond that, enjoy the journey. I think we're always focused on the destination. And after you get a certain level of success and the people that are able to repeat it over and over again, it's because those people know like, hey, this is what the journey is. I'm willing to do it and I'm going to enjoy the process.
Wow.
That way it's really tough to lose.
I love that. What are 3 things that you've done in the past year that has improved your life the most?
Dang, these are good questions. I've been working on my mental health a lot. I've been, trying to, in those moments when I just want to lash out or freak out or, break down, I've been working on that. I've been, trying to be more present, especially with my kids and family. And that's made a huge difference. And I'm not good at it. I'm telling you, like, this is a work in progress because I'm on my phone a lot, but just being present. And then I think the third would have to be kind of related to that. And that's gratitude. Dude, I've had some crazy problems just within the last few days. This week, I legally can't share some of them right now, but maybe book 2 or something they'll be in or at some point, where like I've shed actual tears because of struggles I've had at work, that I didn't see a way out of. And, when I go through a gratitude routine every single morning where I list 3 things that I'm thankful for and 3 things about my day that I'm looking forward to. And I think that saved me a lot of times. Wow. Because, I served my mission, a third world country. I've seen a lot of bad. And so no matter how stressed I feel about my business, dude, I still have a lot to be thankful for.
Wow. No, the habit of gratitude is like the antidote to basically every negative emotion. So like if you're struggling, like get in the habit of feeling the emotion of gratitude, like write it down, feel it in your heart. One of my favorite habits is Tony Robbins priming. And it's like the first thing you do this breath work and then you think of 3 things you could feel grateful for and you go there and you see what you saw, feel what you felt. And it's like a game changer because then you start your day with that. Like it's way easier to have a good day,
Dude, it's like almost hard to not have a good day.
That's awesome. I love that. If you had the world's attention for 2 to 5 minutes, what would you want them to know?
Oh, it would probably be something along the lines of, we're capable of so much. We sell ourselves short because we're afraid of failure, and failure, I really don't like that word because it's, we learn so much through failure and through mistakes and trial and error. And in the beginning, everything's a failure. When we start going to the gym and we can't run a mile or half of a mile, that's technically failure, but we got better. Right. So I think it would be that it would be this motivational, you've got this, look how far you've come. Your potential is huge and like, go for it.
I love that. I heard this, I think I read it in a book, but it said, failure is only failure if you quit. Like, don't confuse short-term defeats with failure. Failure,
exactly.
Like if you just keep moving forward and
exactly.
learn from your mistakes, just keep moving forward, learn from others' mistakes, read the books, do the things. There's no way you can't succeed in life.
Yep. I love that.
Like the greatest salesman in the world, like one of my favorite quotes of all time is, failure will never overtake me if my determination to succeed is strong enough. And like, if you just want it bad enough and you just keep moving forward, there's no way you can't fail.
For sure.
This has been a blast. Last couple of questions. What gets you excited in life right now, Allan?
I'm excited about my book, obviously.
It comes out when? Next month?
It will probably be released in April.
Awesome.
I'm excited about that. I'm excited about just the fun age my kids are at. I've got a span 12 and 10-year-old boys and a 6-year-old daughter. And so got some soccer games to get to tomorrow.
Awesome. Just got a new Ferrari.
I just got a new car.
Shout out. Yeah.
Yep. Sitting outside, like literally picked it up like an hour ago.
It's beautiful.
So, excited about that. Like that was a couple of years in the making, but the really cool thing about that is we designed it from the ground up. And so it's really cool because I saw it in my mind's eye. I've been, thinking about it, and we drew up pictures and all that stuff. And then just today, just a couple of hours ago, I saw it in person for the first time. And it's like this microcosm of a lot of the things in my life where it's like, there's two creations, right? Talk about that 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And the second creation is that it was physically manifested. And so, really cool car. It's crazy fast, 1,000 horsepower.
What is it called? What kind is it again?
So it's a tailor-made. So it's a 1-of-1 SF90 Ferrari. So
wow, it's beautiful.
Yeah,
that's awesome. And I agree. Like, you probably manifested that spiritually so many times. Visualized it. Wrote about it, and now it's here. That's awesome. Where can people find you, Allan?
I'm at Real Allan Draper on Instagram, and then my website's allandraper.com.
Awesome. Dude, thanks again for coming on. This has been a blast. I'm sure everyone got a bunch of nuggets today. And I appreciate you going for it. Like, dude, you're doing it and you're inspiring me, and I know a lot of people. So
thanks, brother. Appreciate that.
And hats off to you for like still prioritizing your family and doing it the right way. So even more impressive.
All right.
Thanks again. And yeah, if you got value, share this with a friend. But until next time, peace.